The spirit of adventure. Generations ago, pioneers found it aboard covered wagons, crossing into a new frontier called America. Today, that spirit of adventure lives on in a new generation of Americans, conquering rough and exciting territory in four-wheel drive vehicles. It's a frontier we call the world of four-wheeling.
Hi, I'm Janet Watson.
And I'm Sean McGraw. You know, Janet, I think it's obvious to anyone these days that four-wheel drive is going through an explosion. Everywhere you look, you see families enjoying their 4x4s.
I think I know why, Sean. Four-wheeling is just plain fun. It provides the freedom to choose where you want to go and how you want to get there.
And not only that, but four-wheel drive's superior traction and controllability makes driving safer. Whether you venture off-road to fish in a clear mountain stream, tow a trailer on vacation, or to just keep going on icy roads.
But along with the freedom to go where you want, you need some common sense, too.
In this program, you'll see the right ways to use your 4x4 safely and how to get the most out of it.
We'll get tips from the best in four-wheeling, Mark Smith, America's top expert when it comes to four-wheel drive, and his daughter Jill, a pro in her own right.
We'll show you how and why four-wheel drive works, so you can use it to its fullest potential.
And then hit the road for driving basics to see how four-wheel drive traction improves handling and control.
Next, safe winter driving techniques and professional advice on coping with slippery road situations.
Then we'll go off-road and learn how to confidently drive over sand, through mud, and cross shallow streams, along with proven techniques to get yourself unstuck, because it happens to everybody sometime. We'll even take on the rough country, go up steep hillsides and over rocky terrain. Yes, you can do it, if you know how.
We'll top it off with suggestions for family getaways, group adventures, four-wheel drive clubs, and accessory ideas for your vehicle. It's all here in the world of four-wheeling. When it comes to getting around, nothing beats four-wheel drive. For nearly a half-century, it's helped people reach their destinations over some of the world's toughest driving conditions.
Four-wheel drive simply means that all four of your wheels get power from the engine at the same time, improving traction and control.
It's a system that was developed and implemented during the Second World War.
In World War II, the need for a go-anywhere military vehicle gave birth to the four-wheel drive Jeep. It needed to operate both on paved roads at normal speeds and on extremely adverse terrain. Well, to meet these twin challenges, a very clever engineering solution allowed drivers to switch from two to four-wheel drive and back again.
Technology has come a long way since then, but many of today's sport utility 4x4s, like this Jeep Cherokee here, use a grandchild of the unique system those early engineers developed. The heart of the system is right here, and it's called the transfer case. In operation, engine power goes through the transmission and into the transfer case. A drive shaft here provides basic power into the rear axle. Plus, there's a drive shaft here that delivers power to the front axle when in four-wheel drive.
And just as a transmission has different gear shift settings, the transfer case also has different gear positions. So, depending on the driving conditions, you can combine different four-wheel drive settings using both the transfer case and the transmission.
This combination of engine, transmission, transfer case, and axle is called the drivetrain. It's what your vehicle uses to allow it to conquer all the different road conditions, or go camping, fishing, pull a trailer, or climb a mountain, wherever that pioneer spirit takes you. And remember, no matter the situation or the speed, always be sure you and your passengers are buckled up.
So, you just bought a 4x4. If you're new to the system, and even if you aren't, there's a few basic terms you'll need to know. To begin with, four-wheel drive vehicles come in two basic setups: part-time, sometimes called on command, and full-time four-wheel drive. The difference between the two all boils down to how the wheels on the front and the rear axles are allowed to rotate during turning maneuvers. Picture an axle driving around a corner. The inside wheel covers less distance and rotates slower than the outside one. If the wheels are not connected to the drivetrain, they are, in effect, freewheeling. Each is free to rotate differently, even though they're on the same axle. To allow wheels on a powered axle to move at different speeds when cornering, engineers developed what's called a differential, which is part of the axle and distributes speed to each wheel. In a turn, the differential allows the inside wheel to turn slower than the outside wheel, even though both are driving the vehicle forward. In part-time four-wheel drive, power is directed to both the front and rear axles in equal amounts. The drive shaft to the rear axle is rotating at the same speed as the drive shaft giving power to the front. The reason it's called part-time is that you use it part of the time, or when you really need it. Since both drive shafts are locked together, the front wheels have a tendency to fight the rear wheels on a turn on dry pavement because each wheel has a different turning radius and a good grip on the road surface. So, part-time four-wheel drive should only be used on loose or slippery surfaces where there is enough give or slip on the tires to eliminate the chances of binding between the front and rear wheels. While there's differential action between the wheels on the same axle, there is no differential action between the front and rear axle. So, if you drive in part-time four-wheel drive on dry pavement, you'll increase the wear and tear on your drivetrain and your tires. A full-time system, on the other hand, solves the problems of front-to-rear binding by simply adding a differential right in the transfer case. Now, the front drive shaft can rotate at a different speed than the rear drive shaft. With differential action on both axles, you can keep your Jeep in four-wheel drive full-time for as long as you like. This provides constant four-wheel drive control on all types of roads, from the freeway to the rugged trail to everything in between. The most convenient way to get from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive is with a unique system called shift on the fly.
That shift on the fly is one of the things that makes modern four-wheeling great.
In some older 4x4s, to go from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive and back, you'd have to stop and get out of the vehicle and engage the front wheels with locking hubs. Well, in modern vehicles, shift on the fly gives you the ability to change driving modes right from your seat at any speed. In the case of Jeep, shift on the fly is available in both part-time and full-time systems. Say you're going down a dry highway in two-wheel drive and suddenly a cloudburst soaks the pavement. Well, instead of stopping, simply move the transfer case lever to four-wheel drive as you go. Immediately, the traction of all four wheels can work for you, and it's just as easy to shift back again. You can get four-wheel drive in both automatic and standard transmissions, and it's really your taste as to which one is better. Both work equally well in four-wheel drive, though with automatic, you don't have to concern yourself with that clutch foot, which is really nice sometimes in off-roading. In addition to your transmission, there are other gears in your transfer case that you'll want to use depending on your driving situation. They're usually marked high and low on your transfer case lever. You'll always use high range in two-wheel drive and for most of your four-wheel driving, such as a gravel road or wet freeway pavement. But when you need maximum traction and extra pulling power, for extreme cases like plowing through really deep snow, or loose off-road sand, or crawling over rocky terrain, you'll want to engage four-wheel drive low range. To engage, slow the vehicle to 2 to 3 miles per hour, shift the transmission into neutral, then shift the transfer case into low range. A word of caution, never attempt to engage low range when the vehicle is moving faster than 2 to 3 miles per hour. Transfer case damage may result. Now, as with all part-time four-wheel drive modes, never use low range on dry paved roads. Don't forget that you can change the settings on your transmission case as well as your transfer case. For maximum low-range power, for example, you can put the transfer case into low range and the transmission into first gear. This is called low-low.
Right now, let's talk tires. You'll want to use only wheels and tires that are recommended by your owner's manual. And be sure to check and maintain recommended tire pressure with an air pressure gauge. That's because mixing tires of different types or tread measurements, say a steel-belted radial with a fiberglass belt, could change the steering and suspension characteristics of your vehicle. It's vital that your 4x4 be equipped with tires of the same size and type on each wheel. So if you use the recommended all-weather tires, make sure to mount them on all 4 wheels. Many people buy a 4x4 for the fun of going off-road. Now, by off-road, we mean any time you leave the pavement. Even gravel roads can be considered off-road if they aren't very smooth and full of ruts. Mud, sand, and hills are all considered off-road and are some of the fun kind of challenges that your 4x4 can deal with. You'll see just how to do that a little later. Before you leave the dealership, your salesperson will have reviewed the controls and other important aspects of your new vehicle. Now's the time to get accustomed to it. There are handling differences in a shorter wheelbase and a higher ground clearance, so become familiar with your vehicle. Test the acceleration and try the brakes. Learn your limits in both. One thing you'll notice right off is better visibility. Sitting higher than normal cars, you can see over them, which is an advantage anytime, but especially good in towing boats and trailers. Learn to anticipate road conditions and be ready to engage four-wheel drive when you need it. As you encounter wet, potentially slick pavement, shift on the fly to four-wheel drive. Keep in mind that four-wheel drive offers you extra traction when under power, but little or no additional traction when braking. So even though you have the extra traction of four-wheel drive, be extra cautious in less than ideal conditions. Slow down and maintain a safe distance between you and that car in front of you. When there's no other vehicle around and it's safe, test the road's slickness by gently applying your brakes. If you sense any sliding, the surface has become too slippery and you'll need to slow down and be more careful. For those of you just starting out in four-wheeling, there is no substitute for practice.
Like anything else in life, the more you get out with your four-wheel drive and work on your driving skills, the better you'll be. So let's get going.
Beautiful day. Perfect for skiing. Lots of fresh snow.
Now all we have to do is get there. Well, if any vehicle can do it, this one can.
And if anybody can drive us there, she can. She's Jill Smith. Jill Smith regularly helps teach the LA County Sheriff's Department how to use four-wheel drive in patrolling the backcountry around Los Angeles. Before we go, we always put on our seatbelts.
Generally in snow and ice, you'll start out in four-wheel drive high. Start checking your vehicle's handling. How does your handling and braking feel? Is it sluggish? Does slight brake pedal pressure start you sliding? If it does, slow down. Look, that car's losing it. See his back end fishtail? Too much power and not enough traction. Now, give it just a little bit of power. Four-wheel drive starts us out smoothly and evenly. For the best handling and safety reasons, You never want to travel too fast in snow or ice. Slow and smooth always works best. Let road conditions determine your speed. That way you can deal with any cornering or braking situations safely.
But how do you tell what range or gear you should be in?
It's really a matter of experience, and the only way to get that's by doing it yourself.
Okay.
It's a good idea for you to bring your 4x4 to a lot like this where you can get some practice.
Okay.
Your turn.
Check for any hidden obstacles under the snow, and then try out your different gears and ranges. How does the handling and grip feel to you? If you need more traction, you can always downshift into a lower gear, or stop and go to a lower range.
Practice gives you confidence, so when a real situation comes up, you don't have to stop and think. It just becomes instinctive. There are basically two kinds of skids, front end or rear end. Both are usually caused by too much speed or excessive braking.
Front-end skidding happens because you lose steering traction on the front end. The car doesn't want to turn, it wants to go straight. To correct for this with manual transmission, lift off of the accelerator and decrease your steering angle to restore traction. If you have an automatic transmission, the two-footed technique comes in handy. Use your right foot lightly on the accelerator and your left foot softly on the brake instead of using your right foot for both. You have a quicker response time and more control over what the vehicle is doing. Rear end skidding occurs when the rear tires lose grip on the road and the rear end slides out. To correct, add a little power and turn the wheels gently into the direction of the skid to straighten out the car. You don't want to overdo the correction because it could go too far the other way and you'll fishtail. Once again, practicing these techniques beforehand in a safe area will help you when the real thing happens.
On straight roads, look far ahead to anticipate any problem. Avoid dangerous situations by keeping a safe distance between cars. And leave yourself ample room to slow down and stop. If you try to stop too quickly, you'll lock your brakes and slide. Instead, pump them to maintain traction. Anytime you're driving unplow roads, all-weather tires, good for both snow and mud, are your best friends. They're designed to find traction for a good grip. In deeper snow, keep your front wheels straight and drive with steady momentum. This will help your tires dig in and compact the snow for a better grip. In freshly fallen snow or unplowed roads, you'll get better traction by making your own tracks rather than following in the packed ruts of other drivers. Just 6 inches to either side of the beaten path should be enough to give your tires the extra bite they'll need. So, Jill, what should I do when driving in snow this deep?
You want to switch to a lower gear, but stay in four-wheel drive high. That should give us the power that we need to get through these tougher situations.
The rule of thumb is downshifting until you get the traction and control you need.
You may need to stop and shift into four-wheel drive low to make it through really deep or wet snow.
The word here is smooth. Drive at a moderate speed as smoothly as you can. Let your vehicle's momentum work for you. Sometimes you'll find that you can power through some conditions that you'd otherwise get stuck in if you took it too slowly. Another important thing, watch for ice hidden under the snow. Not even a 4x4 has super traction on sheet ice. One of the biggest dangers of wintertime driving is something called black ice. That's when moisture on the pavement freezes into a thin layer of ice that's practically invisible, but it's very dangerous. to test for black ice, pump your brakes lightly and see if you begin to skid. If you do, slow it down. Stay off the brakes and let your engine compression help your braking.
If you use tire chains in heavy snow or ice, it'll increase your traction dramatically.
One thing you don't want to do is hit your brakes hard while using chains. They have a tendency to lock up even if you let off the brakes, and you'll keep skidding.
If you must stop in a snowy area, such as a parking lot, and there's a grade of any sort, park in such a way that when you pull out, you're going downhill. Your chances of getting started again without getting stuck are a lot better. If you do get stuck, get into four-wheel drive low, and by carefully shifting your transmission from forward to reverse, you can rock your vehicle forward and backward a couple of times to build a little runway. And get up some momentum to move out of your spot. Otherwise, use that handy shovel you always keep in the trunk. Dig out a pathway for your tires and use four-wheel drive low to make your escape. With this knowledge and some smart practice, you'll be able to get when and where you want to go with ease and safety.
Most people buy a 4x4 for safety and security. But for some, going off-road is the real road to adventure. Away from the pavement, there are many fun and exciting challenges lurking out there. You name it, you can conquer it, if you know how. So let's get ready for your first off-road trip.
Before you go, there's some tools and accessories that every off-road four-wheeler needs to carry in their 4x4. Sooner or later, if you go off-road, you're going to get stuck. It's part of the territory, so you need to know how to get yourself unstuck.
Serious off-roaders mount an electric winch to the front of their vehicle. They unwind the cable, attach it to a stationary object, then rewind the cable, which pulls them free. A less expensive alternative is called a come-along. It's a manual winch. It takes more time and more muscle, but it will work. Also, carry a pair of leather work gloves with you. They're handy for changing tires or handling winches. A shovel comes in real handy for digging a tire path should you get stuck in sand, some kinds of thick mud, or in snow. You can also use a traction mat. Now, a couple of pieces of old carpet or a floor mat will work just fine. Just stick the edges of them under the tires to add traction and help you get out. And in case you get high-centered on something where more than one of your wheels are off the ground, you'll need a high-lift bumper jack and a couple of 2-foot square pieces of plywood to help you down again. You'll see how to use these later.
Let's start with something that most of us four-wheelers are likely to do, and that's driving in the sand. And whether you're riding on the beach or in the desert, there are some special considerations. Mark, what are some of those considerations?
Well, two important things. One is the type of sand we're driving in, and the other is the distance we're going to have to drive in the sand.
Mark Smith knows his more than 40 years of experience make him America's top off-road four-wheel drive expert, leading an incredible journey across the Darien Gap in Central America. In a large sandy area, it's a smart idea to get out and walk the sand first. Hard-packed sand is no problem to the four-wheeler. In fact, they used to race cars at high speeds on the sands of Daytona, Florida, in the days before the Speedway. But if the sand is loose and more than a few inches deep, you'll have a few decisions to make. If it's just a short patch of soft sand until the surface is hard again, your best bet is probably to go at a reasonably good speed and try to stay on top of it long enough to get to the other side.
On this different stretch of soft sand, a deflated tire will spread the load over a larger area, allowing the tire to float or stay on top of the sand instead of digging in like a hard tire will.
Your regular tires will work fine with some adjustments. First, drop each tire's pressure to about 10 pounds. Check it with the pressure gauge. You'll see a definite bulge in the sidewall where it's in contact with the surface. But remember, before returning to the pavement, re-inflate your tires. Otherwise, you'll tear them up. Use that portable electric tire pump. Just plug it into your vehicle's cigarette lighter and refill them back to highway pressure. Double check them with your pressure gauge. As always, the first thing you do is put on your seatbelt. Now go, because once you're committed, don't change your mind. Go straight and steady. Momentum and smooth handling are the key, like driving in snow. You want to apply just enough power to keep moving, but not so much that the wheels begin to slip. When they slip, they're digging into the sand, and that's the last thing you want to be doing. Keep your wheels generally straight, and if you have to turn, do it smoothly. Making sharp turns has the same effect as putting on your brakes. And you could get stuck.
If you should happen to get yourself stuck in a sand trap, congratulations. It happens to Jack Nicklaus, too. Now, there are a number of choices you have to getting yourself unstuck, such as
use your shovel and dig a path in front of one of your stuck wheels. A handy tip you might try is with two 2-foot square pieces of 3/4-inch plywood and a heavy-duty jack. Use one of the plywood pieces as a base for the jack. It spreads the load out over a bigger area and won't dig into the ground. Once your tire is out of the sand, you need something under it to provide traction. That's where the other piece of plywood comes in. And you can also use your floor mat or an old piece of carpet under the wheel. Lower the vehicle. Now you have the traction to drive out of trouble.